Breaking news, China has officially exempted some US imports from 125% tariffs as per Reuters. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of news to cover here in this video. It is imminent, a pause on China tariffs to negotiate. This is going to cause a parabolic rally in markets. Could be short term, I'll give you that. But nonetheless, I think you need to watch this video in its entirety. Let's go ahead and get started. Also in the news today, we have a lot of big trade headlines that I'm surprised are not pulling up the broader indexes as much as I think they should be. Trump says that China's Xi, which is the president, has actually called him. Trump says, quote, "My administration is in active talks with the Chinese to strike a deal." I mean, how much more obvious can this be that a pause on China tariffs is coming? It's right in front of us. I think some people are just not paying attention. When this comes, you're going to see an even larger rally in markets. I would be highly surprised if we don't have a pause on Chinese tariffs before Monday. Like, this news is going to come out over this weekend, in my view. Take that, do what you will with it. But keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know Trump personally. I don't know what the extent of that phone call sounded like. But, I mean, the first step to negotiating is like lifting the embargo on China. China's not going to want to negotiate until the tariffs are at least paused. Donald Trump says Crimea will stay with Russia. Donald Trump says, "I will set a fair price of tariffs for different countries." Trump says, "I would consider it a victory if the US has 50% tariffs a year from now." That's kind of a crazy headline. 50%? There's no way. Trump says that he wasn't worried during the April bond market stress, which is untrue. It seems like everything at this point is really about the bond market, right? When the bond market starts to break, Trump starts to break. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Trump says that he loves the concept of raising taxes on wealthy people. Trump says we are doing a 90-day pause until we come up with numbers I want. And that he would veto a bill with Social Security and Medicare cuts. And Trump did signal support for a ban on congressional stock trading. Donald Trump says we don't need anything from Canada. And he declines to discuss seeking a third term because, let's be honest, that sounds pretty premature at this point. Now, Donald Trump says that he expects trade deals in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And being reported today, Russia's Putin meets with U.S. envoy Witkoff. China says the U.S. is not having any talks on tariffs. So there's this weird back and forth, I guess, dialogue going on. China doesn't want to admit that. Trump says that China's president has in fact called him. And I really just think until we get a pause on these tariffs, China doesn't want to look like they are, worried about this at all. They're trying to keep their poker face going. And the Chinese embassy says the U.S. should stop creating confusion. The Trump administration is pressuring Europe to reject the AI rulebook. And American Express CEO says his business is in great shape because its wealthy Gen Z clients aren't hurting at all. And that is in quotes, per Fortune. Donald Trump says trade deals are going well and that a Russia and Ukraine deal is also coming along. Now, this was a big headline today as well. Trump says we're very close to a deal with Japan. USTR, United States Trade Representatives, said that Trump ultimately will determine whether to proceed with alternative arrangements for nations that could eliminate or reduce the current 10% duties. Which personally, I think that would have something to do with like buying our bonds. You agree to buy our bonds, lower rates for America, then we will remove that 10% baseline tariff, which would be a really good outcome. This morning, we had Michigan consumer sentiment that came in. We were expecting 50.8 for the headline number. It came in at 52.2, so that was better than expected. 5-year inflation expectations were expected at 4.4%. We came in at 4.4%. Consumer expectations were expected at 47.1. We came in at 47.3, so that was better than expected. Current conditions came in at 59.8 versus expectations of 56.5. So that was better than expected. And one-year inflation expectations came in at 6.5% versus expectations of 6.7%. So across the board today, Michigan consumer sentiment came in better than expected, although still high. CNN's Fear and Greed Index is now at 34. That is a huge improvement from where we were just a couple of weeks ago when you hit as low as 3. Market momentum, extreme fear. Stock price strength, extreme fear. Stock price breadth is fear. Put and call options, extreme fear. Market volatility is neutral. Safe haven demand in fear. And junk bond demand in greed. So your subcomponents still look pretty bad. A new AI investor sentiment survey came out yesterday as well that still shows bearish investors outpacing bullish investors by over 2x. In fact, there's more neutral investors right now than bullish investors, which goes to show, again, if we get a pause on Chinese tariffs, there's a lot of people that are not positioned for that are really not expecting that. And I think that would be a huge catalyst. Now, bullish investors sitting at 21.9%, neutral investors at 22.5%, and bearish investors at 55.6%. These are the craziest numbers I've seen in a long time. I mean, I've never seen neutral investors higher than bullish investors ever that I can recall. That's weird in and of itself. We did get a new Atlanta Fed GDP Now update yesterday, coming in at negative 2.5% for the headline estimate. If you exclude gold imports, you're negative 0.4%. So next week we get our first GDP report, the first real, estimate, and it's gonna be pretty negative. At least that's what it looks like. Also in the news today, it's being reported that Amazon sellers are raising prices after Trump's China tariffs. They say, quote, "It's unsustainable." They say about 25% of price increases in recent weeks have come from sellers based in China, according to Smart Scout data. Many US-based retail sellers are looking for new suppliers in countries like Vietnam, Mexico, and India. So again, I think Amazon is going to be one of the most important companies for this earnings season. And to go ahead and wrap up this video, the Dow is down 0.75%, S&P is down about 0.25%, NASDAQ up 0.13%, Russell 2000 down about 1%, and the VIX is up about 0.5%. Still, even though we've rallied or recovered quite a bit from the lows, the VIX is still at 26.5. So it's still very, very elevated. Now, also what is in part boosting markets today is Alphabet, that had really good earnings, that showed a lot of confidence in the future of the business, boosting the dividend, issuing a $70 billion share buyback. That's usually not what a company does if you're on the doorstep of a recession. So I think that is, broadly speaking, a good sign, but we really need to get Apple, Amazon earnings, like some of your more impacted companies from the consumer and from tariffs, to actually report before we draw too many conclusions for this earnings season, which will be next week where those companies will be reporting. Now, again, I think at any moment now, like literally any second, you are going to be getting a pause of the China tariffs. If it's not today, it could be in after hours today. That wouldn't surprise me. It could be any time over this weekend. But if Trump's serious about negotiating, about lowering the temperature, if you will, with China, the first step, literally the first step, is to pause the tariffs like he did on all other countries. Okay? That is step number one. And I think Trump wants to make a deal. I think he wants to, cool off the tensions a bit. The economic harm that could come to America from the Chinese tariffs, if they stay in effect, is huge, right? I don't think Trump wants that necessarily. We'll see. But it seems only logical that a pause to China tariffs is coming. And from my perspective, sure, you've rallied a bit from the lows, but I don't think a lot of people are actually expecting that. I don't think a lot of people are actually, thinking that's going to happen anytime soon. And I think a lot of people are going to be caught off sides, right? We can see via the Michigan, not the Michigan Consumer Sentiment, but the AAII Investor Sentiment Survey, I mean, there's more neutral investors than bullish investors. That's wild, okay? I've never seen that a day in my life, okay? There's over 2 times as many bears versus bulls. There's a lot of people short this market in cash that are fearful of a recession, where a pause on Chinese tariffs and or negotiations is going to mean bringing down the recession risk. It's going to mean you probably want to get long this market quickly. And I think when that news does come out, you're going to see quite a big squeeze in markets. I don't know how long it'll last. Obviously, it depends on how negotiations go, what the levels look like. Is the damage already done in the economy? Those are the big questions that we have. But that initial pause on China, as far as tariffs, is going to be very good news. And I am currently positioned for that. And I think that is coming imminently. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know Trump. I don't know President Xi. I'm not in the inner circle of that administration. But all signs seem to be pointing towards a pause on China tariffs. Now, I don't think you're going to get a 10.5% day again, but I think you could easily see a 4 or 5% positive day. That could definitely be in the cards. And like I said in prior videos, I'm really looking at these moving averages here. 50-day moving average at 561, 200-day moving average at 570, and the 100-day moving average at 578. Those are the levels that I would expect you could come up to, right? At the high side, the 100-day moving average at 578 could be in the cards. Following today, markets are now green, by the way, that would be about a 6% rally from here. That is not extreme or unwarranted in the event we do get a pause on China tariffs and negotiations. Now, your 300-day moving average is at 551. That is just a couple of dollars away. You want to get above that as well. We've kind of been in this trading range between resistance at the 300-day moving average and support at the 500-day moving average, with markets trending higher. So I think it's only a matter of time before you break that and break out much larger to the upside. And I mean, once you start negotiating with China, and hopefully, right, over the next couple of months, the data for the economy is not too bad, then a lot of people are going to say, maybe the bottom was already in. Maybe we did panic. And maybe if we're not long this market, we want to get long this market. These are just my thoughts. Again, let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comment section. Let me know if you think this is a wrong take. Like, if you don't see a pause on China tariffs coming anytime soon. And, you know, I'm just trying to stay as apolitical as possible here, not give my political opinions. Without political opinions, I think the signs are clearly lining up towards a pause on China. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.